Okay, 105. I think you can get started. So thanks for joining for this week's OTT. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to build a Node.js API with Hapi.js. A few disclaimers before we starting to get into the subject. What are the OTTs? This is a space where we can share knowledge about any tech updates, new frameworks, tools, things that might be interesting for next projects. Feel free to keep joining the other OTTs, get informed about new tools that we're going to discuss. And if you would like to present some OTTs, let the architects team know, and then they will schedule and give all the inputs that you need, like to create the these slides, the presentation, some tips, and so you can have so you can discuss about some subjects that you learned during the work or during some research that you did. Also, another thing that I'd like to mention is that all of the OTTs, they are uploaded, after we finish the presentation, they are uploaded to the YouTube channel. So if you don't follow, if you don't subscribe to, are not subscribed yet to the White Prompts YouTube channel, please subscribe, give thumbs up for this presentation and others that already exists, and yeah, and keep following so you can get informed about new presentations that we are going to create in the future. So some context about the presentation about Hapi.js. I started 1 month ago to research about Hapi.js because I was told that my next project, would use Hapi.js on the API side, and I didn't know yet Hapi.js. It's very common to see Node projects, APIs built with Express. Is like 90% of the market with Express. But Hapi has some interesting concepts that for some of the projects, they seem to fit better for some situations. So we are going to talk a little bit about the Hapi.js history and some of the features that I saw so far. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to raise the question. I might know the answer up front if I already faced the same issue. But if not, we can try to figure out together, or we can research up after the presentation and give feedbacks about the questions. So, okay, it started, Node.js started in about around 2009 and became very popular framework. Using Hapi.js started with in Walmart Labs team. They faced some issues, some scalability issues on their project. Most of them were like when we have huge traffic, like when during the Black Fridays, then the Express framework they were using at that time, it kept using too much memory and processing power. And they started to face some conflicts of routes. one route that one developer created conflicting with another one, and they worked separate. And when they started, they integrated the code. It didn't validate if the route was duplicated, and then they faced some issues with that. So those were the main reasons. They started to look for alternatives, and then they created Hapi, the alternative to Express, designed by Walmart Labs for high scale. And then here we have the conflicting routes and the middlewares. They have a different concept for middlewares. With Express, middlewares, they have callbacks, and the middleware's order, it matters a lot for Express. With Hapi, they did a slightly different approach. They created plugins that you can insert into the project, and they don't conflict. The order doesn't cause too many that issues that they had with cascading middlewares. So this is another point that they changed for Hapi, and it allowed them to create more isolated developers environment. So they didn't step in someone else's toes when they started to create something. So during the first Black Friday, when they changed from the previous framework to Hapi, they didn't have any issues with the memory processing power to increase a lot as it was happening before. And they kept the day sharing insights on Twitter about how the infrastructure was behaving during the Black Friday. And then it got like flat charts with constant use of memory, not peaking with requests. So good proof that it worked for them. So how do we use Hapi? It's pretty simple to install. Since we have already a package configured in your project, then it will require to install npm install Hapi. Probably works for Yarn too. I didn't test, but probably works. And if you use TypeScript, then you might want to install some other packages so that it is compatible with the makes Hapi compatible with TypeScript. And I also installed Node.js in this project, so we can have live reload when we create something. And what looks like a basic structure for a server? It's a very common structure. We have this init process that is called at the end of file, and then this init process exposes this server that is inherited from Hapi, and then it will keep listening to one port that we can define, and then we define the hosts. So with this in place, if we try to access localhost, then port 3000, of course we will get like 404 because we have the server, but we don't have any of the routes yet. So when we start adding some routes, then we need to say to tell the framework a few things. It expects to have the method if it's get, post, put, delete, patch, the path where it's going to be listened to. In this case, is the slash, the base path of the repository. And then the handler that's going to be interacting with that request. In this case, we tell like just return hello world, and then we get this result back. And yeah, and then, okay, what if we want to pass some values to the URL? It can be a name, it can be most common an ID, and then we want to use that value some way. So this is another route. It has hello, and then it has a name attribute here. This question mark here tells that this value is optional. So in case we enter just only hello without any value after that, it's going to work too. And then how do we get this value? Then we can get from request and then params for this case, and then the name that we defined here. So this is the way we can get this value. Or otherwise, it's going to tell a stranger in case we omitted the name here, and going to tell hello and then the name. For query strings, where we have the question mark after the URL and then parameters, it's slightly different. We have request, in this case, query instead of params, and then the name which that matches this one, and then we can return another value for that. Let me open Postman and the project so we can see some examples going on. Where is it? This one. What's it? Let's confirm the package. Oh, let me just start. There we go. So here I have the same structure. So we have the server running, the hello route, hi, and then we have another additional sign up. And then if we try those examples, then we can see the results returning this one. This one is that example where we can omit this value, and then it's going to say stranger. Is that correct? Okay. We have an issue with the slash. Probably only I can do some validations in case we have slash and then nothing after that. But the same endpoint worked for both when we have and when we don't have a parameter after that. And then this one is the one when we have query parameters. So yeah, and then next one. And then this one is when we want to have a post endpoint. Then in this case, we get the result from the payload, from the request.payload, and we can map it to a object type. And then we can use any of the properties that the object has. For this sign up object, I included 2 properties, username and password. So if we, so this request will look like this one, username and password. We try to sign up, then it's going to, this screen, okay. This is going to return welcome, and then the username, payload.username here. But what if we want to include some validations, like the username is required, and then the password I want like a minimum of 5 characters, and also required. Joy library is responsible for validations with Hapi.js. It's possible to include other libraries to do validations, but the Hapi development team, they usually recommend Joy by default. And after installing Joy and adding this to the project, which I don't have on these slides, but we have here. The way that we need to include is like import Joy from Joy, and then this Joy uppercase we can use to validate the schema. So, okay, here we have values on the post request. They come from the payload. So we can validate from payload that this should be an object, and then this object must have those two properties. If this validation fails, then it won't continue to the next steps from the handler, which would be returning the welcome message. That could be also saving to the database, sending requests to some other APIs. In this case, we are just only returning the welcome. And then when we try, let's say 4 characters, then it validates and doesn't return the welcome message. And okay, this is one example with the result. And okay, we talked a little bit about the what they have in place on the documentation. It's an interesting tool to see, especially for this framework. They have great documentation explaining all those steps from getting started, adding routes, and then if people are migrating from the Express project to Hapi, how to do caching in Hapi, how to deal with cookies. They have great documentation, and also this plugins session. It has many plugins that can be included. For the examples I prepared, I didn't include that many plugins, just the Joy, but they have many plugins here, covering authentication, GraphQL, some of them for testing, validations, and then messaging in case of microservices. They have great tool here. So the conclusion that I did is that I have a great first impression with Hapi. With these examples, we can see that they are very intuitive, easy to create, and well organized. The documentation is very well organized, and they are seems to be pretty flexible with plugins and allowing to include different plugins, creating new plugins in case the ones that exist doesn't work fine for the project or the situations I'm trying to deal with. So great first impressions with Hapi. And here we will share the slides after the presentation. Here we have the links that were used for this presentation, and including the Medium post, which was the when I started to learning and try to organize the ideas. And then we are open to questions or comments and suggestions.
Yeah, sorry, I have one. So what would you say about Happy? You said they improved upon some of the problems that they were facing with Express. My question would be, is this a silver bullet, or are there cases when perhaps Express is preferable over Happy or vice versa?
I would say that there's no silver bullet at all. And I would say that Happy advantages of Express over Happy, I would say that Express seems to be more flexible, when Happy is more like oriented to the you have to follow those rules, otherwise it won't compile. When Express is more open to different approaches, this can be good for some situations and bad for others. But I would say that the possible advantages of Express over Happy is one is this. Another, I would say that Express is more popular, so it probably would be easier if you found some situations that's not documented. Probably someone else faced the same issue, and Happy doesn't have that popularity that Express has. But I would say that Happy seems to be good. The good documentation that they have would overcome those possible issues that the team might have. One thing that I tested before the presentation and I didn't show, when that scenario with duplicate roots, so it does in the compile, when it compiles the code, so it wouldn't we wouldn't face some issues when we try to get to the endpoint. It breaks right after we included the duplicate endpoint. So yeah, this is an interesting tool that they created to solve that issue with, okay, I created one endpoint, this is merged to dev, and someone else created the endpoint with the same name that does some similar thing or different approach for, but it matches the path, and then it validates during when it compiles, so it fixes that issue with duplicate endpoints. So, yeah,
that's interesting. So basically, what I'm gathering from your answer is that Happy is more opinionated than Express. Express gives you more freedom to design an architect as you see fit. Whereas,
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, if there are no more questions, then thanks for your time, and yeah, and let us know if you have some ideas to present. Let us know in Slack, so we can schedule a presentation for you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.